Internet's headlines. Cathay Pacific assures Easter holiday travelers that their flight plans will not be disrupted. There's been a 10% rise in child abuse cases, with sexual assault comprising around half. And Vladimir Putin secures a fifth term following a landslide victory in Russia's presidential election. Cathay Pacific has promised Easter holiday travelers there won't be a repeat of the chaos that occurred over Christmas and the Lunar New Year, when more than 800 flights were cancelled because of a pilot shortage. The Transport and Logistics Bureau said the city's flagship carrier admitted that it underestimated the number of pilots needed for peak travel periods, but blamed it on an organization system that has not been updated. The Civil Aviation Department has reviewed reports from Cathay and urged the airline to thoroughly check its organizing and planning systems to prevent a similar situation from happening again. The airline said it has taken remedial measures to strengthen its operations and recruited experienced aviation professionals to ensure that manpower is sufficient. The government also urged Cathay to look for new destinations on the mainland, Southeast Asia, the Middle East and Eastern Europe to strengthen Hong Kong's status as an international aviation hub. Janice Yu, Cable News.
The increase in the number of child abuse cases is worrying. Police recorded over 1,390 reports last year, up 10% from 2022. About half were sexual assaults, including 45 triggered by online activity. Easier access to the internet has led to a rise in child pornography.
超過90%嘅案件呢，受害嘅兒童係女性。
Senior Inspector Chen Hangming from the Family Conflict and Sexual Violence Policy Unit said more than 90% of the victims were girls. Most online child pornography victims were aged between 12 and 16, while the youngest in a sexual assault case was only 9 years old. Even though many apps which allow children to meet others online have a view once option, or messages are deleted after being seen by the recipient, Chen said criminals could save messages using screenshots or screen recording. In one case, a boy sent illicit photos of himself to a man he met online. The man then threatened to blackmail the youngster unless they had sex. Police arrested the suspect after they were alerted by the boy's family. In another case, a 14-year-old girl offered sexual services for $2,500. She only reported to police after fearing that she could be pregnant.
That was not the first time the girl make this offer to the online friends. So what we could see is that actually the parents and the people around the girl, if he or she knew the situations earlier, he or she may have already prevented the incident happened twice or again and again.
Police clinical psychologist Feng Ho Kin urged parents to adopt a more open-minded approach in educating their children. This will encourage youngsters to talk to their parents when they have done something wrong. Janice Low, Cable News.
Legislation on domestic national security under Article 23 of the Basic Law is one step closer, with the Legislative Council resuming the second reading of a draft bill during an extra meeting tomorrow. The government wants the new law implemented as soon as possible, and the legislature is bypassing the usual 10-day pause in the lawmaking process. Legislative Council President Andrew Leung has expressed his support for an early passage of the Safeguarding National Security Bill. The extra meeting tomorrow morning will focus on completing the remaining procedures needed for passing the bill. Customs officers have arrested 1,300 people and impounded 9 vehicles suspected of distributing illicit cigarettes across the territory. During a large-scale crackdown that began 4 weeks ago, Officers also seized $430,000 worth of illicit cigarettes from 56 cross-border travelers. Over 1,000 people were penalized for carrying illegal cigarettes. Industrial and residential units in Lok Ma Chau, Santin, Yuen Long, and Sham Shui Po were raided, and illicit cigarettes stored on those premises were seized. As of last Thursday, the Customs Department confiscated 61 million illicit cigarettes as well as a large amount of cigars and tobacco products worth $270 million. In the wake of the crackdown, the department reminded people that anyone convicted of possession of illicit cigarettes or trading in them faces a maximum fine of $1 million and 2 years in jail. Janice Yu, Cable News. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that a direct confrontation in Ukraine between Western forces and Moscow could trigger World War III. He was speaking after winning a fifth term as president, securing 87% of the vote. Following his landslide victory, Putin mocked Western democracy, noting that some in the United States are trying to stop Donald Trump from returning to the White House. The Russian leader claimed that the whole world is laughing at the U.S., describing it as a catastrophe. Washington led the West in denouncing the Russian election, saying it was neither free nor fair, adding that Putin stopped others from challenging him and jailed political opponents. In a show of dissent, some Russians answered opposition calls and queued outside polling stations at noon on the third and final day of the polls.
The health ministry in Gaza has reported deaths and injuries in Israel's latest assault on the largest hospital in the besieged enclave. Tanks and heavy artillery were used in the attack, the fourth since October. Israel claimed it was targeting Hamas members who had regrouped in El Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. But Palestinian authorities accused Israel of lying and said it committed a war crime. More Palestinians have been killed as Israel continues to bombard Gaza. The latest deaths included 11 people, 5 of them children, whose home in central Gaza was reduced to rubble. The Palestinian death toll since October now stands at over 31,700. As the violence continued, an American commentator hit out at the mainstream media in his country.
We have a corporate media system in the United States that our government likes to pretend is separate from our government. But in fact, they're all connected to the same entities, the same massive corporate powers. They're all putting out one level of a propaganda for the U.S. state, for the corporate state, for corporate America.
China's economy got off to an encouraging start this year, with industrial output continuing the rise that began last October. It gained 7% in January and February from the same 2 months last year and was above market expectations. Fixed asset investment picked up 4.2%, surpassing forecasts of 3.2%. The mining industry surged 14.4% and manufacturing grew 9.4%. While retail figures also recorded positive growth, rising by 5.5%, it was below the expansion recorded in December. Even though revenue generated by the catering industry surged 12.5%, the gain was the weakest since last August. The urban unemployment rate increased slightly by 0.1% to 5.3% compared to last December.
服务业商务活动指数为51%。
National Bureau of Statistics spokeswoman Liu Aihua noted that the data covered the period when China marked the Lunar New Year. She believes there will be more favorable factors promoting job security. Liu said economic challenges remain, but the country is confident that its growth target of 5% can be achieved. Janice Low, Cable News.